Hi, my name is Marilyn Lysohir. It's also pronounced Lysohir. And the exhibition that's at the Missoula Museum of Art is called The Dark Side of Dazzle. And I made the installation in 1984 and 1985. When you look at the battleship, you can see that there's like a really bright colors and patterns on it. And I didn't know when I first started to work on the piece that had a name, and it's called Dazzle Camouflage. And I was working on it in an open studio, and some historian came in and said, "Wow, that's Dazzle." And I thought he meant, oh, it's just bright and colorful, but he said, no, it's Dazzle Camouflage. So once I knew that the camouflage was Dazzle, I came up with the name, The Dark Side of Dazzle, which in a lot of times, like when we're little, especially little boys, they'll play war games or they'll have guns and they're shooting. So by calling it The Dark Side of Dazzle, it's kind of bringing in that overtone of, no, war is traumatic and it's horrible for not only the people that are the soldiers fighting in the war, but for the civilians that are living through the war. So the piece, my dad was in the Army during World War II. My mother was a sergeant in the Marines during World War II. So I wanted to do pieces that commemorated their lives and to honor them, and also honor people that, in this piece particular, to honor people that were in wars. So I have, I took stories. I have World War II, I have a Korean story, and I have Vietnam stories. And so it was built before the Gulf War and all of that. So and I almost got a World War I. I found someone that was still alive, but he just didn't want to talk about World War I. So anyway, so the stories, when you come in, you can sit and listen to them or read them. When you come up with an idea for a work, a piece of art or whatever, what is the form it's an idea. So the idea was to honor my dad and fellow soldiers, and how will that formally look? What do? Do you make a big tank? Do you make an airplane? And in my bedroom, I had a model of a ship on a shelf, and every morning I'd see that ship. And I mean, every morning. So life kind of, I think, is like, clue, this is a clue, pay attention. And and usually we're not paying attention, but every day I'm seeing that battleship when I wake up. And I thought, oh, I should make a big 24-foot long battleship. And so that's how the idea for the ship, and the ship then represents the war. That was my form. I had this Dazzle ship that I had found in an antique shop that I didn't know was Dazzle, but it was bright colors. So that was my model then, and I got it. Someone said, how did you figure out how to make it? And I had the USS Arizona, I had a model ship that I put together. And then I looked at that and I tried to figure out, how can I transpose that form, simplify it into ceramics where you make it out of clay. How do you do that? So it's a whole engineering thing that comes up, like from structure that's inside there to hold the weight, to bolting systems to hold things together. So once you have your form that you're going, and you have your idea first, then you come up with the form that idea will take. Then it's what techniques do you use to make that idea come to life. So the ship could have been made out of wood, it could have been made out of bronze, but I worked in clay, and clay always, in the 60s, 70s, it was always considered a craft, and it never got the due respect that it actually is getting now in the 21st century. But in the 20th century, it was just, oh no, that's clay. oh, that's craft. And I figured, no, I'm not giving up on that. I like clay. That was what I learned how to sculpt in, was clay, and I just didn't want to give up on it. But it was, it wasn't the right look for art at the time, but it didn't matter because it wasn't about that. It was about my dad, and it was about my mom, and it was about my uncle, Charlie, and it was about Pete Daffin and Virgil Rhodes that gave me their stories of their experiences in a war. Anytime we hear traumatic things, it does affect us, unless you are not empathetic. And some people are not empathetic. It does affect all of us, particularly if you're closely connected. Like when my dad was telling the stories, or my uncle, or even my first, the person that was my boss on my first job. He was a really nice man, and he shared a lot of stories that I use in here. Being female, that was hard because they can talk to like a male child, or a male friend, or someone that had experienced it. They could talk about that. But since I never experienced war, that was hard because I don't think they knew how I would react. And so you just have to be calm, and you listen, and you cry, and you laugh, and you experience it like when you hear something for the first time. So the stories are, some of them are very funny, and others are very sad, and some are real adventure stories. So they're, some don't have happy endings, some do. Those people were, I was in the same space with them, so I documented them. They're ordinary people, and I was able to document them because I figure ordinary people are important too. I think when you're a younger artist, you're like, oh, I just hope everyone likes it, and whoa. But when you get old, you don't care anymore. It's like, having done this 37 years ago, and it's a tough piece. I mean, I broke my hand doing it. My back went out for over 13 years from this. The top part of the ship froze. It had to be repaired. One whole side fell over and broke. It all had to be repaired. What else? There's more things. Oh, it was in a fire. It was in a flood. So there's a flood line. If you look at the ship, you'll see a yellow line, and that's the flood line for the ship. And that's just part. Art is not easy. Art is hard. People, like when you do art, you make people happy. You can make people sad. You can make people interested in like learning something new. You can irritate people. So there's all different emotions that can come from the work that you do. And some people are in awe, when like, whoa, how did you do that? And others will find, like the first time it was shown in Los Angeles in 1985, 86, I think it was 86, a critic wrote about it, and they wrote nice, and then at the end they didn't write nice things about it. And I remember one of the gentlemen that gave me his stories, I told him, oh man, I got a bad review. And he said, Marilyn, don't you worry about that. He called it a battle wagon. He said, that battle wagon is something. And he was one that gave me all kinds of stories. So you just have to go with the flow, and you have to, you just adapt. You just adapt to life. Try to see the clues that are coming your way. If you're an artist or a creative person, what do you do next? Like what's your path?